The medical station floated in the darkness of space like a massive silver wheel. Sanctuary 7 was the largest hospital in this part of the galaxy. Ships from hundreds of different worlds came here when their crews needed help. The station belonged to no one government or species. It was neutral ground where everyone could find healing. Lieutenant Taeyang Park sat in the waiting room of Medical Bay 3. His left arm was wrapped in temporary bandages that were already soaking through with blood. His ribs hurt every time he breathed. The fight with the pirates near the outer rim had been brutal. His ship barely made it to the station before the engines gave out. Taeyang was 28 years old and had been in the military for 10 years. His black hair was cut short in military style. His face showed the tiredness of someone who had seen too many battles. But what really made people stare were his tattoos. His right arm was covered completely from shoulder to wrist. Traditional Korean patterns flowed down his skin in black and red ink. Dragons and clouds mixed with geometric designs that his grandmother would have recognized. On his left arm, he had the names and dates of friends who died in combat. Across his back, hidden under his torn uniform shirt, a phoenix spread its wings. On his chest, his unit insignia marked him as part of Earth's Special Forces. The door opened and a creature walked in that made Taeyang sit up straighter. She stood about 7 feet tall on 2 legs, but that was where the similarity to humans ended. Her skin glowed with a soft blue light that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. She had 4 arms, each ending in delicate 3-fingered hands. Her face was flat with large black eyes that seemed kind despite being so alien. She wore white medical robes that marked her as a doctor. "I am Dr. Rila," she said through a small device on her collar that translated her words into English. "I will treat your injuries today. Please do not be afraid." The Velthara are known throughout the galaxy as skilled healers. Taeyang stood and bowed slightly, a habit from his Korean upbringing. "Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate your help." Dr. Rila gestured for him to sit on the medical table. She moved around him with quick, efficient movements. 2 of her hands checked his bandages while the other 2 prepared medical equipment. She pulled out a device that looked like a flat metal plate with glowing symbols on its surface. "This is a bioscanner," she explained. "It will tell me everything about your injuries and your health. It does not hurt. Just stay still." Taeyang nodded and sat quietly. He had been through medical scans before, though never with alien technology. He watched as Dr. Rila activated the device. It hummed softly as she moved it over his body, starting with his head and moving down. Everything was fine until the scanner passed over his tattooed right arm. The device shrieked. The sound was so loud and sudden that Taeyang jumped off the table. Red lights flashed across the scanner's surface. Dr. Rila dropped it in shock, all 4 of her arms pulling back as if she had touched fire. The walls of the medical bay lit up with warning lights. A computerized voice began speaking in a language Taeyang did not understand. Dr. Rila's skin stopped glowing blue and turned a sickly gray color. She backed away from him, her large eyes wide with what could only be terror. "What's wrong?" Taeyang asked, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "What's happening?" Dr. Rila's translator struggled to keep up with her rapid speech. "The scanner. It detected. This cannot be possible. You have death marks." "Ancient death marks? Death marks? These are just tattoos. They're decorative. They don't mean anything dangerous," but Dr. Rila was not listening. She pressed something on her wrist and spoke urgently into it. Within seconds, the doors to the medical bay crashed open. 6 massive creatures stormed in, each one wearing heavy armor and carrying weapons that crackled with energy. These were Krell warriors. They looked like a cross between insects and armored tanks. Their exoskeletons were thick and dark. Their multiple eyes scanned the room for threats. Each one was at least 8 feet tall and probably weighed 400 pounds. "Secure the threat," one of them barked. Taeyang immediately put his hands on his head and dropped to his knees. He had enough military training to know when to fight and when to surrender. 6 armed aliens in a confined space was definitely a surrender situation. "I'm not a threat," he said calmly. "There's been a misunderstanding." The Krell warriors surrounded him, their weapons pointed at his chest. One of them yanked his arms behind his back and secured them with metal restraints. They were not gentle about it. Dr. Rila was speaking rapidly to someone through her communicator. Taeyang caught words like Vortan and extinction-level threat through the translation. None of it made any sense. "Doctor, please," Taeyang tried again. "These marks on my skin are cultural. Humans do this voluntarily. It's called tattooing. It's not dangerous." Dr. Rila finally looked at him, though she kept her distance. Voluntary? You chose to mark yourself this way? Yes, many humans do. It's very common on Earth. That makes it worse, she whispered. Her skin was still gray with fear. Only the most violent species in galactic history bore such marks. The Vortan Reapers marked themselves before they destroyed entire star systems. They went extinct 50,000 years ago. Our medical databases are programmed to identify any species with similar markings as a catastrophic threat. I promise you, I'm not a catastrophic threat. I'm just a soldier who got hurt in a fight and needs medical attention. But his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The Krell warriors dragged him out of the medical bay and down a long corridor. Other aliens pressed themselves against the walls as they passed, staring at Taiyang with obvious fear. They brought him to a small room with transparent walls made of some kind of energy field. They threw him inside, and the energy field sealed behind him with a crackling sound. The room was bare except for a metal bench. Through the transparent walls, Taiyang could see the station's main corridor. Aliens of all different species walked by, and many stopped to stare at him. Some pointed. Others quickly hurried away. His injured arm throbbed with pain. His ribs felt like they were on fire. He was tired, confused, and now he was a prisoner. Taiyang sat down on the metal bench and looked at his tattoos. The dragon on his forearm seemed to mock him. These marks that meant honor and memory to him apparently meant death and destruction to the rest of the galaxy. He had come to the station looking for help. Instead, he found fear. Dr. Rila could not sleep. She lay in her quarters staring at the ceiling while her mind replayed the moment the scanner detected those marks on the human. 3 days had passed since the incident, and the entire station was still talking about it. She was a doctor. She had taken an oath to heal, not to fear. But the scanner's warning had triggered something deep in her species' genetic memory. The Vortan Reapers had killed billions before they were finally stopped. Every child in Velthara schools learned about them. They were the monsters that haunted galactic nightmares. Yet something bothered her about the whole situation. The human Taiyang had not acted like a monster. When the Krell warriors attacked him, he surrendered immediately. He tried to explain. He seemed confused and hurt, not dangerous. Dr. Rila made a decision. She got up and went to find Ven, the station's xenoanthropologist. If anyone could help her understand what was happening, it would be him. She found Ven in the station's library, which was really just a large room filled with data terminals. Ven was an Illyri, a species known for their love of learning. He looked like a floating jellyfish made of crystal, with tendrils that glowed different colors depending on his mood. Right now they glowed orange, which meant he was curious. Dr. Rila, Ven said through his translator, I was hoping you would come. I have been researching the human species since the incident. What I have found is fascinating. Tell me, Dr. Rila said, sitting down at the terminal next to him. Ven's tendrils flickered as he pulled up images and data. Humans have been marking their skin for over 5,000 years. They call it tattooing. It involves using needles to inject ink under the skin, creating permanent images. Dr. Rila felt sick. They stab themselves with needles? Repeatedly? Yes, and they pay others to do it for them. It is considered an art form, but why? What purpose does it serve? Ven pulled up more images. Humans with all kinds of tattoos covering their bodies. Some had words, some had pictures, some had patterns. The reasons vary. Some do it for beauty. Some do it to honor loved ones who died. Some do it to mark important events in their lives. Warriors like Taiyang often get tattoos to remember their fallen comrades. Dr. Rila studied the images. There was something about them that was almost beautiful, once you got past the horror of how they were created. And this is normal for them? Not just warriors? Approximately 30% of adult humans have at least one tattoo. It is very common in their culture. While Dr. Rila and Ven researched, other humans on the station were dealing with the fallout of Taiyang's arrest. Minji Han was an engineer who had been working on Sanctuary 7 for 6 months. She was a small woman with short hair and quick hands that could fix almost any machine. When she heard that another human was in trouble because of his tattoos, she went straight to the station commander's office. Commander Thex was a Draven, a species that looked like walking lizards with silver scales. He was known for being fair but cautious. When Minji entered his office, he was reviewing reports about the human threat. Commander, this is ridiculous, Minji said without bothering with formal greetings. Taiyang is not a threat. He's injured and needs medical care. The scanner identified him as a carrier of death marks. Thex replied calmly. We must take that seriously. They're tattoos. Ink and skin. I have one myself. Minji pulled up her sleeve to show a small flower on her wrist. This is for my grandmother who died 3 years ago. Does this make me a threat too? Thex leaned forward, studying the mark. You intentionally wounded yourself to place that there. Yes, it hurt for about 10 minutes. Then it healed. It's been there ever since, reminding me of someone I loved. I do not understand, Thex admitted. Why would you choose pain to remember someone? Because the pain is temporary, but the memory lasts forever. That's what makes it meaningful. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, Junho Kim was having his own problems. Junho was Earth's diplomatic representative to this sector of space. He was older than Taiyang and Minji, with gray in his hair and the patient expression of someone who had spent years negotiating with difficult people. He sat in a conference room with representatives from 6 different species. They were all demanding answers about humanity's death marks and whether humans posed a threat to galactic peace. I assure you, Junho said for the 10th time, tattoos are not weapons. They are cultural expressions. Many Earth cultures have practiced tattooing for millennia. But your species chooses to wound itself, said a representative from the Quilon Collective. That speaks to a violent nature. By that logic, any species that has ever experienced injury is violent. The difference is that humans choose when and how to mark themselves. We control it. We make it meaningful. Or, said another representative, you are simply better at hiding your violent nature than the Vortons were. That statement hung in the air like poison. Junho felt his patience wearing thin, but he kept his voice calm. The Vortans destroyed planets. Humans build stations like this one, where different species can work together. We are not the same. Back in the library, Ven had made a disturbing discovery. He pulled up ancient files from the Velthera archives, records that were 50,000 years old. Dr. Ryla, you need to see this, he said quietly. The files showed images of the Vortan Reapers. They did have markings on their skin, similar in pattern to human tattoos. But there was a crucial difference. These markings were natural, Ven explained. They appeared on Vortan skin when they entered a combat state. It was a biological response like how some Earth animals change color, but humans choose to put these marks on their skin permanently. So the scanner was wrong? Dr. Rila asked. Not exactly. The scanner recognized the pattern of the marks, but it did not understand the context. Vortan marks appeared during violence. Human marks appear during, what would you call it? Memory? Art? But there is another connection. Ven continued, his tendrils turning a darker color. The Vortan homeworld was located in a region of space that is now part of human territory. Not close to Earth, but in the same general area. It is possible that humans and Vortans share some distant evolutionary ancestor. Dr. Rila felt cold. So humans could be what the Vortans evolved into? Or, Ven said carefully, humans could be what the Vortans could have become if they had survived long enough to evolve past their violent nature. This possibility shook Dr. Rila deeply. The galaxy had destroyed the Vortans out of fear. What if they had been wrong? What if the Vortans could have changed given time, and now humans were here, bearing similar marks but choosing to create them rather than being controlled by them? Was this what evolution looked like? A species taking control of its own violent impulses and transforming them into art? Dr. Rila made another decision. She stood up from the terminal. Where are you going? Ven asked. To check on my patient. He has been without proper medical care for 3 days. That ends now. The station command will not approve. I am a doctor, Dr. Rila said firmly. My oath is to heal, not to let patients suffer because of fear. She left the library and walked toward the detention area where Taiyang was being held. With each step, she felt more certain that she was doing the right thing. The scanner had given them information, but information without understanding was just noise. It was time to actually talk to the human. Taiyang was not doing well. 3 days without proper medical treatment had turned his injuries from painful to dangerous. The wound on his arm had become infected. His whole body burned with fever. Sometimes he was not sure if he was awake or dreaming. He lay on the metal bench in his cell, staring at the energy field that kept him trapped. Through the transparent barrier, he could see aliens walking past. Most of them looked at him with fear. Some looked at him with disgust. None of them looked at him with kindness. His mind wandered. He thought about his grandmother in Seoul who had taught him about honoring ancestors. He thought about his unit commander who had died saving Taeyang's life during a raid on a smuggling base. Each tattoo on his body represented someone or something important to him. They were his history written on his skin. Now those same marks might kill him, not because they were dangerous, but because everyone was too afraid to help him. The fever made him see things that were not there. Sometimes he thought he was back on Earth. Sometimes he thought he was fighting pirates again. Once he was sure his dead friends were standing outside his cell, watching him with sad eyes. When Dr. Rila approached his cell, Taeyang barely noticed. He was too lost in his fever dreams. Dr. Rila stood outside the energy field for a long moment. The human looked terrible. His skin was pale and covered in sweat. His breathing was too fast. She did not need a scanner to know he was dying. She deactivated the energy field and stepped inside. The sound of the field shutting down brought Taeyang partially back to consciousness. He saw something moving. His training took over before his mind could catch up. He lunged forward, ready to defend himself, but then he saw it was the doctor, the Velthara who had been so afraid of him. She was here alone trying to help. Taeyang stopped himself. Every muscle in his body screamed at him to fight, to escape, to survive. But he forced himself to stop. He collapsed back onto the bench, breathing hard. "I will not hurt you," he said through dry, cracked lips. "I promise." Dr. Rila stood very still. She had seen what just happened. The human's instincts had told him to attack, but he had chosen not to. Even sick, even in pain, even with every reason to be afraid, he had chosen not to hurt her. "I know," she said softly. "I came to treat your wounds. I should have done this days ago." She approached carefully and began working. Her forehands moved quickly. She cleaned his infected wound and applied medicines that stung, but immediately began to reduce the pain. She gave him injections for the fever. She wrapped his ribs properly so they could heal. While she worked, she asked him questions. "This mark on your arm, the dragon, what does it mean?" Taeyang looked down at the tattoo. "In Korean culture, dragons represent strength and wisdom. My grandmother used to tell me stories about dragons when I was a child. I got this tattoo to remember her after she died. And these names on your other arm, friends who died in combat, soldiers I served with. I wanted to make sure I never forgot them." Dr. Rila's hands paused in their work. "You mark yourself to remember the dead?" "Yes. In my culture, it is important to honor those who came before us. These tattoos are like permanent memories. As long as I live, they live too, in a way." Dr. Rila finished treating him and sat back. "Our scanner identified these marks as death marks, symbols of violence and destruction. But you say they are symbols of memory and honor. Both things can be true," Taeyang said. "Death is violent and destructive, but remembering the dead can be honorable. Humans are complicated like that." While this conversation was happening, another human was making his own stand. Hyun was a cargo hauler who had been living on Sanctuary 7 for 2 years. He was covered in colorful tattoos showing scenes from Korean mythology and his travels through space. Each one told a story. When he heard that Taeyang was being held because of his tattoos, Hyun got angry. He forced his way into a council meeting where representatives from various species were debating what to do about humans. "You want to know about human nature?" Hyun said loudly, interrupting their discussion. "Let me show you." He rolled up his sleeves, showing his tattoos to everyone in the room. "This one is a dokebi, a Korean goblin from my grandmother's stories. This one is the first star system I ever flew to on my own. This one is a flower that only grows on a planet called Rethus Prime. A Rethian pilot saved my life once, and I got this tattoo to remember him." He pointed to each tattoo as he spoke. "Every mark on my body tells a story. Some are happy, some are sad, some are about pain, and some are about joy. But they are all about connection, about remembering, about being grateful for the people and experiences that shaped me. You see violence in our marks," Hyun continued. "But we see love. We see memory. We see art. Yes, humans can be violent. Our history is full of wars and conflicts. But we are also capable of incredible kindness and beauty. These tattoos prove it. We chose to take our pain and turn it into something meaningful." The council members listened, though not all of them looked convinced. One of them, a Keelan representative, spoke up. "But your capacity for violence is what concerns us. The Vortans also had great capacity for violence. The difference is choice," Hyun said firmly. "We choose what we do with our violent nature." We choose to control it, not let it control us. Back in the detention cell, Dr. Rila was making her own discoveries. She had connected her medical scanner to Tai Yang, but this time she was looking at different data. Instead of just scanning his skin, she was scanning his brain. What she saw amazed her. Human brains had a section that was far more developed than any species she had studied. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making and self-control, was enormous compared to other species. Your brain, she said quietly, is built for making choices, for controlling impulses. You have the biological capacity to override your survival instincts with conscious decisions. Taeyang managed a weak smile. Is that surprising? Very. Most species act on instinct when threatened. But you, when I entered your cell, your instincts told you to attack, but you stopped yourself. You chose not to hurt me, even though you were sick and scared. That is what humans do, Taeyang said. We choose. It is what makes us human. Dr. Rila stood up and looked at him carefully. The Vortons could not choose. Their violent nature controlled them. But humans, you controlled your violent nature. You evolved past it. She turned and left the cell, but this time she did not reactivate the energy field. Instead, she went straight to Commander Thex's office. She burst in without announcing herself. Thex looked up in surprise. Commander, I have made a discovery about the human species that you need to know immediately, Dr. Rila said. Her skin was glowing bright blue with excitement. What is it? Humans are not Vortons. They are what Vortons could have become if they had survived long enough to evolve. Their brains are specifically designed for self-control and conscious choice. They have the capacity for violence, yes, but they also have the capacity to choose not to be violent. That is the crucial difference. She pulled up her scan data and showed it to Thex. When I entered Taeyang's cell, his survival instincts activated. But he stopped himself from hurting me. Even sick, even in pain, he made the choice to be peaceful. A true predator species would not have that capacity. Thex studied the data for a long time. Finally, he said, You are saying that humans mark themselves to prove they control their own nature? Not just to prove it, to remind themselves. Each mark is a choice to turn pain into meaning. It is the opposite of what the Vortons did. I need to call an emergency council meeting, Thex said. Ven worked late into the station's night cycle. The more he researched the Vortons, the more disturbed he became. He had discovered files in the Velthara archives that were sealed 50,000 years ago. It took him hours to get the proper clearances to open them. What he found inside changed everything. The official history said the Vortons went extinct. They destroyed themselves in their own violence. But that was not the truth. The truth was much darker. The Vortons had been exterminated. A coalition of terrified species had hunted them down and killed every last one. They had destroyed the Vorton homeworld. They had made sure no Vorton could ever threaten the galaxy again. And the Vortons had not been pure monsters. The sealed files contained records of Vorton art, Vorton music, Vorton poetry. They had been a complex species struggling with their violent impulses. Some Vortons had even reached out to other species, asking for help to control their nature. But the galaxy had been too afraid to help. They chose extinction instead of understanding. Ven's tendrils turned a deep purple color, which for his species meant profound sadness. He sent an urgent message to Commander Thex requesting a private meeting. An hour later, Ven, Commander Thex, Dr. Rila, and Security Chief Krath sat in a secure conference room. Ven displayed the sealed files for them to see. The Vortons were murdered, Ven said simply. They did not go extinct. We killed them. The room fell silent. Krath's exoskeleton made clicking sounds as he shifted uncomfortably. I do not understand. They were destroying entire star systems. Some of them were, Ven corrected. But not all. The files show that many Vortons wanted to change. They wanted help, but the galaxy was too afraid to give it. Commander Thex leaned back in his chair. And now we face a similar situation with humans. Exactly, Ven said. Humans bear similar markings. They have similar capacity for violence. But there is one crucial difference. Humans have already evolved past their violent nature. They did it on their own without our help, without our fear forcing them into extinction. Dr. Rila spoke up. The question is whether we will make the same mistake twice. Will we help humans integrate into galactic society, or will we let fear drive our decisions again? Krath had been quiet throughout this discussion. He was the one who most strongly believed humans were dangerous, but now he spoke. I need to see for myself. I need to test this human. Test him how? Thex asked suspiciously. I want to see how he responds under real threat. Not a sick prisoner in a cell, but a soldier in combat conditions. If humans truly have the control Dr. Ryla claims, he will prove it. Absolutely not, Dr. Ryla protested. He is still recovering. Then we wait until he is recovered, Krath said. But I must see this with my own eyes. If humans are to be trusted, they must prove they can control their violence when it matters most. Despite protests, Krath's test was approved. They would create a simulation where Taeyang would face what appeared to be a genuine threat. His response would determine humanity's future in galactic society. 5 days later, Taeyang had recovered enough to walk around his cell. Dr. Ryla had been treating him regularly. The infection was gone, his fever had broken, and his ribs were healing. He still felt weak, but he was alive. He did not know about the test that was coming. Late that night, alarms suddenly blared throughout the detention area. The energy field on his cell flickered and died. Red emergency lights flashed. A computerized voice announced that there was a security breach. Taeyang's military training kicked in immediately. He moved to the cell door cautiously. The corridor outside was empty. He could hear sounds of fighting in the distance. He had two choices: stay in the cell where he might be trapped if the station was really under attack, or try to find safety and possibly help defend the station. He chose to move. He had no weapons, no armor, just his recovering body and his training. He moved down the corridor quietly, alert for danger. That was when the Krell warriors appeared. 6 of them, just like before, but this time, they were not trying to arrest him. They were attacking him. Energy blasts scorched the walls around Taeyang's head. He dove for cover behind a support pillar. His heart pounded. Every instinct screamed at him to fight back, to survive at any cost. He analyzed the situation quickly. The Krell warriors were armored and armed. He had nothing, but he knew hand-to-hand combat. He knew their weak points. He could see at least 3 ways to kill the nearest warrior and take his weapon, but something felt wrong about this. Why would station security suddenly try to kill him? Why attack in such a public corridor? Why use non-lethal energy settings when lethal force would be more effective? This was a test. Taeyang made his decision. Instead of fighting, he raised his hands and shouted, "I surrender. I do not want to fight. Please, I surrender." The Krell warriors kept advancing, firing around him but never quite hitting him. They were hurting him, pushing him toward a dead-end corridor. Taeyang kept his hands raised but kept moving, looking for non-violent options. He spotted a maintenance hatch. He could go through it, escape through the station's service corridors. But that would look like running. Instead, he stood his ground. When the nearest Krell warrior got close enough, Taeyang did move. But not to kill. He swept the warrior's legs, dropping him to the ground. Before the warrior could recover, Taeyang had removed his helmet and pointed the warrior's own weapon at him, but he did not fire. Instead, he deactivated the weapon and threw it away. "I will not kill you," Taeyang said clearly. "I do not know why you are attacking me, but I refuse to respond with lethal force. If you want to kill me, you will have to do it while I am unarmed." The other Krell warriors had stopped advancing. They stood in a semicircle around him, weapons ready but not firing. Taeyang looked at each of them in turn. "I have training that could let me kill most of you before you could stop me. But I choose not to. I am human. We choose our actions. We are not controlled by our instincts." The emergency lights stopped flashing. The alarms cut off. The regular lights came back on. Security Chief Krath emerged from a side corridor, his exoskeleton gleaming under the lights. He approached Taeyang slowly. "The simulation is over," Krath announced. "All weapons were set to non-lethal settings. You were never in real danger." Taeyang's legs suddenly felt weak. He sat down hard on the floor. "That was a test. Yes, I needed to see how you would respond under genuine threat conditions." Krath gestured to the Krell warrior that Taeyang had disarmed. "You had multiple opportunities to kill my soldiers. You chose not to." "I am a soldier," Taeyang said tiredly. "I kill when I must, but I do not kill when I do not have to. That is the difference between a warrior and a murderer." Krath made a clicking sound that his translator turned into a laugh. "My species, the Krell, nearly destroyed ourselves in endless warfare. We fought each other for 10,000 years before we learned cooperation. We know what it is to struggle with violent nature." He extended a massive claw to help Taeyang stand. I see in humans what my people once were, but I also see what we became. You are not the Vortons. You are something better, something that learned control without needing to be forced. Krath turned to face Commander Thex, who had been watching from a secure location. I withdraw my objection to human integration. They have proven they can be trusted. Commander Thex nodded slowly. Then it is time to call the Galactic Council. We have a decision to make about humanity's place in our society. Taeyang was escorted back to a proper medical room, not a cell. As Dr. Rila checked him over again, he asked her, "What happens now?" "Now," she said, her skin glowing bright blue with what he had learned was happiness. "We try to make sure the galaxy does not repeat its worst mistake. We help humans instead of fearing them. And if the Council votes against us?" Dr. Rila was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Then I will stand with you anyway, because I am a doctor, and doctors do not abandon their patients, no matter what marks they bear on their skin." The Galactic Council meeting took place 3 days later in Sanctuary 7's largest conference chamber. Representatives from 40 different species filled the room. Some attended in person, others appeared as holographic projections from their homeworlds. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime. Taeyang sat at a table in the center of the room with Junho Kim, Earth's diplomat. He wore a clean uniform that Minji had brought him. His tattoos were visible on his arms. He had refused to cover them. If the galaxy was going to judge humanity, they would judge the truth, not a hidden version. Commander Thex called the meeting to order. "We are here to decide humanity's status in galactic society. The incident with Lieutenant Taeyang Park has raised questions about human nature and their similarity to the extinct Vortan Reapers. We have heard evidence from multiple sources. Now we must vote." Dr. Rila spoke first. She presented her medical findings about human neurology. She showed brain scans demonstrating humanity's advanced capacity for self-control. She explained how human tattoos represented choice and meaning, not violence and instinct. Fen spoke next. He revealed the sealed files about the Vortan extinction. Many council members shifted uncomfortably when they learned the truth. The Vortans had been murdered, not helped. The galaxy had chosen fear over compassion. "We have a chance to make a different choice now," Fen said. "Humans are not Vortans. They are proof that evolution can lead to control rather than chaos." Krath stood and spoke about his test. "I wanted to see if humans could control their violence when facing real danger. Lieutenant Park proved they could. He had opportunities to kill my warriors. He chose not to. That choice defines his species." Then it was Taeyang's turn to speak. He stood slowly, feeling the weight of 40 species' eyes on him. "I understand your fear," he began. "My tattoos triggered your security systems. They made you think of the Vortans. I do not blame you for being afraid." He rolled up his sleeve to show the dragon on his arm. "But these marks are not death marks. They are life marks. Each one represents someone I loved or something I survived. They are proof that I lived through pain and chose to turn it into meaning." He pointed to the names on his other arm. "These are my friends who died in combat. I wear their names so I never forget them. So their sacrifice matters. So they are remembered." "Humans are violent," Taeyang continued. "I will not lie about that. We have fought wars. We have killed each other. Our history is full of blood and suffering. But we learned, we grew. We chose to be better than our worst impulses." He looked around the room at all the different species. Every species here has a violent past. The Krell fought themselves for 10,000 years. The Draven conquered 12 planets before learning peace. The Kelon had 3 civil wars. Violence is not unique to humans. What matters is what we choose to do with our violent nature. "Judge us by our choices," Taeyang said firmly. "Not by your fear. Not by the ghosts of a species that died 50,000 years ago. Judge us by what we actually do." He sat down. The room was completely silent. Then Hyun stood up from the visitor section. "I have something to say too." Commander Thex looked surprised but nodded for him to continue. Hyun walked to the center of the room and stood next to Taeyang. "I have lived on this station for 2 years. I have worked with 40 different species. I have made friends from a dozen worlds. And you know what? Every single one of them taught me something about being a better person." He pointed to a tattoo of a 6-legged creature on his shoulder. "This is a Rethian sand tiger. I got this tattoo after a Rethian pilot saved my life. He risked his own safety to rescue me from a damaged ship. His name was Keth, and he showed me that courage exists in all species. Hyun showed another tattoo, a geometric pattern. This is a Velthara healing symbol. Dr. Rila gave me permission to use it after she treated me for radiation poisoning. She worked for 16 hours straight to save my life. Her compassion inspired me. That is what tattoos mean to humans, Hyun said. They are not marks of death. They are marks of connection, marks of gratitude, marks of love. We mark ourselves to remember that we are not alone in the universe. The council members began talking among themselves. Taeyang could not hear most of it, but he saw some nodding, others shaking their heads or equivalent gestures. Finally, Commander Thex called for a vote.
All in favor of granting humans full status in galactic society?
One by one, the representatives voted. The process took nearly an hour. When it was done, Thex announced the results. The vote is 32 in favor, 8 against. Humanity is officially welcomed into the Galactic Council. The room erupted in noise. Some cheered, others protested, but the decision was made. Junho shook Taeyang's hand. You did it. You gave them a reason to trust us. We all did it, Taeyang corrected, looking at Dr. Ryla, Ven, Krath, and the others who had spoken for humanity. Over the following months, things changed on Sanctuary 7 and throughout the galaxy. Dr. Rila published her research on human neurology. It became required reading in medical schools across dozens of worlds. Her findings revolutionized understanding of how species could evolve to control their violent impulses. The Velthara updated their medical scanners. Now when they scanned human tattoos, instead of reading ancient death marks detected, the display showed cultural memory markers, indicators of advanced social evolution. A strange thing happened after that. Other species became curious about tattoos. They started asking humans about them. Some even wanted to get tattoos themselves. Minji started a small business on the station, creating tattoos for aliens who wanted to try this human art form. She had to modify her equipment for different types of skin, but she made it work. Her first non-human customer was a Kelon who wanted a tattoo of her homeworld's moon. Dr. Rila herself came to M and asked for a tattoo. She wanted a small human handprint on her forearm. Why a handprint? Minji asked as she prepared the equipment. Because a human hand reached out to me when I was afraid, Dr. Rila said. Lieutenant Park could have hurt me when I entered his cell. Instead, he showed me trust. I want to remember that moment. I want to remember that sometimes the scariest thing is also the right thing. The tattoo took an hour. Dr. Rila's skin was different from human skin, but Minji made it work. When it was done, Dr. Rila looked at the small handprint and her skin glowed bright blue with joy. Taeyang got a new tattoo too. He asked Minji to create a design that combined a Velthara healing symbol with a Korean Teguk symbol. It represented the bridge between his people and the galaxy. What does it mean? Minji asked as she worked. It means that fear doing us, Taeyang said. It means we can choose understanding over violence, connection over isolation. The biggest change came when Ven proposed creating a memorial on Sanctuary 7 to honor the Vortans. Many species objected at first. Why honor a species that had caused so much death? But Taeyang supported the idea. Because they deserved better than what they got. Because the galaxy should remember its mistakes so it does not repeat them. The memorial was built in a quiet corner of the station. It showed Vortan markings alongside human tattoos. The inscription read, "To those who struggled with their nature and to those who learned from their mistakes. May the galaxy always choose understanding over fear." The memorial became a popular place for visitors. People from all species came to see it and think about what it meant. One day, Taeyang was standing at the memorial when Security Chief Krath approached him. "I owe you an apology. Cole my judgment. I nearly made the same mistake our ancestors made with the Vortans." "You changed your mind when you saw the truth," Taeyang replied. "That takes courage too." "My people have a saying," Krath said. "The bravest warrior is not the one who fights the most, but the one who knows when not to fight." "We have a similar saying on Earth." Taeyang smiled. "It takes more strength to make peace than to make war." A year after the incident, Sanctuary 7 held a ceremony to celebrate human integration into galactic society. Representatives from Earth attended, along with delegates from dozens of alien worlds. Commander Thex gave a speech that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. "We feared humanity's marks of death," he said, "but we failed to see they were marks of life. Every scar, every chosen wound, every permanent image on their skin tells a story of survival, love, loss, and hope. Humanity does not bear the marks of predators, Thex continued. They bear the marks of those who stared into the darkness of their own nature and chose to paint it with meaning instead of surrendering to it. That is not the sign of a species to fear, but one to learn from. The ceremony ended with an unveiling. The original medical scanner that had detected Taeyang's tattoos was placed in the station museum. A plaque beneath it read, "The device that almost repeated history and the human who helped us write a better future." Taeyang stood looking at the scanner for a long time. Dr. Rila joined him. "Do you regret your tattoos?" she asked. "They caused you so much trouble." Taeyang shook his head. "No, they are part of who I am. The trouble was not because of the tattoos. It was because of fear and misunderstanding. And those things were overcome. What will you do now?" Dr. Rila asked. "Go back to Earth eventually," Taeyang said. "But I think I will stay here for a while longer. Help with the cultural exchange programs. Make sure other humans who come